It's a tale as old as time. Car guys have a million cars and they can't keep any of them running. Well, friends, you and I are no different, because I've got 3 cars, but I can only drive one of them. Now, to be fair, the Civic runs. It just doesn't want to stop under its own power. And the truck will run too. It'll just die before we make it out of the parking lot. But don't worry, we're going to fix all that today. And in this episode, we're going to get both of these guys back on the road today. My name's Hovey. This is Slow Car HQ. Let's get to it. So being the responsible truck owner that I am, I've been trying to do a ton of maintenance to this thing. And I thought that I'd help improve the idle and the health going into the engine by putting a little bit bigger of a breather on this thing. Get more airflow. Engines are just air pumps. Thought that'd be good. And because I'm such a good mechanic, I thought it'd be a really good idea to fully take off the throttle body, clean out all that gunk and carbon that's on there. When I did that, I found a massive crack in our TBI, which was resulting in a huge vacuum leak. So we're going to put this all back together. We've got an entirely new gasket kit for our throttle body and for our injectors and the injector pods. This thing's going to be super healthy and the truck's going to run awesome. Let's get to it. All right, guys, so we are ready to start taking apart our TBI. There are gas lines coming to this and gas running through our injector pods. I don't want to make a huge mess, so we got to clear that out. And in order to do that, we're going to come over to our fuse box and pull out this relay right here. This is our fuel pump relay. So I'm just going to leave that right there. Then I'm going to crank over the truck a few times. That's going to clear the gas out of the lines. Alright guys, we've got our TBI prepped. We took off the breather, we took off all of our hoses, we took off the throttle cable, we took off the IAC valve and the TPS. Now we're ready to actually take this apart. But there's one thing that I want to do while it's still bolted down and we have a ton of leverage. I know that we're going to be taking off our injector pods. And while we still have a ton of pressure on these, it's going to be a lot easier to break these bolts loose. So we're just going to go ahead and do that right quick. Save ourselves some time. And the next thing that we're going to do, I know that we're going to have to take the inlets for the fuel feed lines out. So I'm just going to break these loose very carefully here, but just a couple of turns so that way we can have these guys loosened up. All right, and now we're ready to actually take the TBI out. It is just held on by 3 13mm bolts. So we're just going to take these out, being careful to do this kind of at the same time, just so we're relieving pressure accurately. Now we should be able to just pull this thing straight off, and we'll see if I missed anything. And I did. I missed this hose right here. Let's get it rebuilt. All right, the first thing that we're going to do is take apart this injector pod assembly, and we do want to be super careful with these bolts. They shouldn't be super tight, but let's hope they all work with us here. It really helps that we broke these loose on the truck. We're going to take off this post that just holds our breather down, and this just spins right out. Set that aside for later. The last thing, we do have to take these fuel inlets and outlets out, so that way we can actually lift this out of the assembly. These do just screw in and out, and we've got some new nylon washers for the ends of these, so we'll have to take them out anyway. Just like that, our injector pod assembly is out. We're going to set the throttle body to the side for now so that we can focus on this. I'm the king. Okay, so I'm really learning on this truck that no maintenance has ever been performed. My rule of thumb is always, if you haven't done the maintenance, it hasn't been done. And the reason I say that on this truck is that pulling apart this injector pod from the housing was horrible. And that kind of implies that this has probably never been changed since the truck was released 31 years ago. But now we got them apart, let's clean them up with some brand new gaskets. That's what people miss, man. It's the authenticity of the channel. Like, things are hard. You got to get creative. You know, you got to use a flathead screwdriver to pry apart these injector pods. You got to scrape at it with a razor blade to get this old gasket off. Like, that's how this stuff goes. I say you're supposed to cut towards yourself, right?
Absolutely.
I was a Boy Scout.
Oh yeah, I bet that feels so good for the part.
We scraped off a ton of gasket material, but as you can see, there's still a lot on there. We're going to take some sandpaper, flatten this out, and make sure it has a really smooth surface for the new gaskets to adhere to. See how that's silver? We need it to be like that all the way. It's going to take me a minute. But I think a lot more of this is deceptive on one of these sides. We're a lot further along than it looks. Everyone used to make fun of me for working on cars. Now, working on cars is cool. And I'm still not cool, but the cars are. I'm genuinely entering flow state right now. Dude, I am not having fun right now. Like, seriously, why are we even doing this? Dude, it's so weird that this is just like my hobby. Alright guys, that sucked. This is definitely the most cumbersome part of this job, but you really need to get these surfaces smooth so that way they can have a good seal, and that way you won't have any leaks. The irony of it is that that seal was so good that we're probably not improving it with the new gaskets, but we are doing a ton of new O-rings and we're rebuilding the rest of the TBI, so we're going to call it a win for my own sanity. We're ready to start putting this back together, and the first thing that we're going to do is start with the injectors. So on this fuel injector, we've got the electrical connections on the top, the atomizer at the bottom, we've got an O-ring here, and then kind of a filter or screen right here where the gasoline actually comes in. That might take some persuading to get out, and then we've got this O-ring here. So we're going to get these off and then go into our kit and grab the new parts. So with that filter off, you can see these holes in here. This is where gasoline actually comes through. So it's really important that we replace that filter as just kind of a last fail-safe to make sure no contaminants get into our cylinders. Installing these in reverse order. We're going to put this screen on here. The other one was stubborn to get off, so we'll see how easy this one is to get on. We got the O-ring on, and then the sealant ring over here. This is really going to get pressed in when we're actually putting it back into the pod. But this one's good to go. Let's move on to the next. Okay, so in order to put these back together, we've got these little hard washers that sit at the top of the bucket here. So we definitely don't want to forget those. Then we're going to take our injector, make sure that the electrical connectors are oriented correctly. They sit horizontally like this. We're going to make sure that the atomizer pokes through to the bottom and that this gasket seats correctly. You kind of got a lot of things going on at once here, but we'll just apply a little bit of pressure and get this seated correctly. That would have been bad. Should be that guy right here. This is where all of our hard work from sanding all of this came in handy. Then, a lot of people might forget this,
There's actually an additional gasket right here. You can't miss that, otherwise you'll get a huge vacuum leak.
We're ready to put the top piece on. Looks beautiful. I'm just going to do this very carefully to make sure that we don't change the orientation of either of our gaskets. Just finagle this on here. So in order to seat these injector pods properly, we've got our new gaskets on here and we've got these bolts just barely threading. So I'm going to use kind of a cross-hatched pattern and just doing a couple of turns at a time, just so we can gradually drive the top of this housing down, and that's going to help us seat our injector pods properly. So you can see around there, we're pretty much seated on all these. You can tell at the bottom because the atomizers are just barely poking out of the housing. Torque spec on these is a little bit, so we're basically just going to give these another half turn working from the inside out just to make sure that we're pretty good all around, just getting these good and tight, but we're not going overkill here. This is all seated up. We're ready to mate it back to the actual throttle body. The last thing that we're going to do is pop off these little nylon washers on our fuel inlet and outlet and just go ahead and replace these with new ones, and then we can mate these back up. We're ready to mate the injector pods back up to the throttle body, so we're going to go ahead and put our internal vacuum gasket on here, get that in position, then we can throw our injector pod housing. Now that this is all sealed back up, it's a little bit tight with this gasket, so we're going to finagle this on here. This was oriented wrong, that's why. There we go. Now we're going to put this on. And now when you do it right, it just drops right into place, wouldn't you know?
And we do want to tighten this relatively evenly, just so we don't have any kind of warpage. And give these a little bit of an ooga-dooga.
Beautiful. Now we're going to throw our inlet and outlet fuel line on here with the new nylon gaskets, washers. These are specific to a certain side. They'll actually go in only one way, but the feed hole on this side is a little bit smaller, so make sure you do that correctly. We're going to grab a wrench while we have it off and just go ahead and get these as tight as we can, but doing this on the truck is going to be a whole lot easier. Now we're ready to put our breather support back in. And we've got a sealant ring that sits on the outside right below where our breather connects. And the last thing that we need to do is put a brand new gasket from the intake to the TBI. We're ready to throw this thing back on. So we're ready to put this thing on the truck. Just want to do a quick inspection of the actual intake, and it looks fine where this sits. The ports on the inside actually look pretty okay. There's really no carbon buildup because I get this thing up to redline pretty often. But we're going to put our little paper gasket on here and just kind of loosely line this up, being careful where our holes are, so that way we don't have any disruptions here. Now we're ready to toss the throttle body on. Want to make sure that we're oriented correctly. And again, we're just going to loosely kind of mock this up, so that way we can run our bolts in. And another thing, you do have to do this kind of in tandem, but you want to position these fuel lines, get them just kind of roughly mocked up while you're doing this. Otherwise, it's going to be quite a challenge to put this all together. All right, so I've learned that it is easier to actually start the flare nuts on the fuel lines before you go ahead and put this in. But now we should be pretty good to go. So I'm just going to do one last lineup of our paper gasket. Drop this in place, and let's see how we did. There we go. First one's the hardest. Now we're going to tighten these down, and the reason that this got cracked in the first place is that somebody tightened this down way too much. Guys, we're going into an aluminum intake with an aluminum part. And aluminum is a very soft metal, i.e. you don't need to make these very tight or you're going to break it. Just want to get them good and tight so that your TBI is not going to fly off while you're going down the highway. Torque spec, a little bit. Now we're going to start putting this back together. We actually got to take this gasket off so we can get our electrical connectors to kind of tie into the throttle body. Now we can put this guy back on. These will line up to the top of our injectors to send electrical power to them. Should hear a pretty distinct click when you put these on. Just like that. Then we're going to hook up our hoses. We've got 3 on the front, 1 on the back. If you miss one, you're going to have a massive vacuum leak. Ask me how I know. Over on this side, we've got 2 electrical connectors. One is our throttle position sensor. It's just a little snap. And the other one is our IAC valve. It's going to help us regulate idle. Almost wrapped up here. There's a hose on the back. That really is. Got to kind of get it by feel. Kind of hard to see. But I think I'm on there. We're going to hook up our throttle cable. It does just snap on. Are we on? No, we're not on. And this has a keeper. You definitely don't want to forget that. Slide it forward and then you turn it so it cannot come off. Everything should be okay. The last thing we're going to do, put our ring plate back on the right way. And next is our 14-inch breather. And this is what all started this in the first place. I wanted more airflow to the engine. And I found out our TBI was cracked. All right. I think we're good to go. I think it's gonna run, dude. Fuel pump relay. You ready? Yep. Oh, I'm not.
That's how we do it, baby. You hear that airflow? This is Slow Car HQ. Alright guys, obviously this truck runs because we're killer mechanics. Never a doubt.
Why are we even doing this?
Anyway, we're not done yet. We gotta put the Civic in here and figure out why that thing doesn't stop. Let's get to it.
I'm king of everything.
I don't know if you heard, bro, but I'm king of everything. How are you doing? Are you ready?
Recording this.
Oh no. Oh no, oh no.
Come look at this. All right, so here's the story on the Civic. My brakes started feeling a little bit funny, so I kind of just stopped driving it for a couple of weeks. Figure, hey, I've got 2 other cars. I'll address it later. Then I was moving it in the parking lot of my apartment, and I completely lost the brakes. Thankfully, we weren't going very fast. We stopped it on the e-brake, no issue. But I figured this would be a good time to address the brakes since I never have had to on this car. When I pulled it over and stopped to figure out what was going on, I realized that while we do have a Wilwood master cylinder, there's 0 brake fluid in it right now. And here's the thing, guys. Brake fluid doesn't evaporate. It doesn't disappear. It leaks. I've never noticed a leak under the Honda, so I'm really not sure where this is going. So I figured this was a good opportunity to rebuild the front brakes on this car because the rear are drums. Then we're going to fill it up with brake fluid and just kind of let it sit here until we start seeing a leak. At the end of the day, I'm probably going to have to replace a brake line, but I don't know that yet. We're going to do a little bit of inspecting and see if we can find it. But if not, we're just going to wait and see where it starts leaking. Let's do it. Okay, guys, so the first thing that we're going to do is replace the rotors. These really don't look too bad. I just don't know how long they've been on the car. or anything like that. So I broke the carrier bolts loose, or at least the top one. We'll get this bottom one out, and that way we can take these off and put a brand new rotor on. Okay, so when we took the caliper off, we found a pretty unwelcome surprise. Looks like we've got the bolt on the bottom. The bolt on the top is completely ripped off. So we're going to address that at a later date, and we're just going to keep on keeping on for now. All right, and by some miracle, this car did come from Pennsylvania. It's had a lot of rust on some of the parts. Not really on the frame, but on some of the parts. But if you know anything about getting these screws out, you know it can be a pain. These ones came out really easy. Now we got the old brake disc off. Let's go check out our new parts. Nothing too special, guys. We just picked up some regular rotors from Detroit Axle, and then we got some nice, I think they're ceramic pads. Yeah, they're carbon ceramic. Now these do come with a little bit of oil on them from the factory to prevent them from rusting while they're sitting on a shelf. So it's a good idea to just kind of run some brake clean on these before you actually install them. But really, that's all you need to do. And look, guys, I might get some hate for this. I'm not running these screws back in because A, I don't think you need to, and B, it's just a huge pain in the ass when these do rust. Because of that issue we found with the bolt for the caliper, I'm not going to be replacing the brake pads. It's a much bigger project than I want to get into right now. So these brake pads are really good. They've got a lot of life left on them. Actually, didn't even really need to change them anyway. But we're just going to leave that be for now. Alright guys, torque spec on this is a lot, so that's what we're going to torque it to. Alright guys, so this side's done. Again, we're not going to be messing with the brake pads right now. That'll be a later problem. While I'm in here, I am kind of just roughly inspecting our brake lines. You just want to look at every kind of joining area. I'm not seeing any evidence of a brake leak, so that tells me that our issue is not up here. So we're just going to throw the wheel on and keep going. Alright guys, we're on the other side here, and for whatever reason, the top bolt of that caliper is also broken off. I mean, this is definitely going to be a bigger project, especially than what I'm wanting to get into right now. So again, we're just doing the rotor on this side. Thankfully, the pads are in pretty good shape. This stuff's really good, and it's good for two reasons. It'll clean off your rotors, and it'll also tell you every single little micro cut that you have in your hand. Feels great. You remember how on the other side I said I wasn't going to put in those screws because they can be a real pain in the A if they're not properly placed? This one over here looks fine, and we'll see if we can break it loose. Nope. On the other side, they've clearly tried it before because they cut a slit into this. Oh Lord. Alright, so these are going to be super fun to take out. I can get these out, but it's going to require some tools that I don't have on me right now. So to be honest, kind of a failure here. All we're going to do today is fill it up with brake fluid, see if we can identify the leak, and then come back here and fully address this, because this is going to be a full day of work, guys, between the 3 broken bolts and these output screws being like that. So let's fill it up with brake fluid, and we're going to call it for today. Everything on this car is just a pain. Basically, the story of this car is that it was a pretty typical Honda, and then I got my hands on it and have really done a lot to bring it back. But some of the things that I haven't touched are still issues, like the brakes, like what we're learning today. One of the things is that this master cylinder, they deleted the brake booster, which is a pretty common thing to do. But since there's no brake booster, the master cylinder fill reservoir is further back. So I'm just going to very carefully pour brake fluid in. Try not to get it all over the nice paint in the engine bay. Good job so far. It's actually way easier than I thought it would be.
I have basically exactly enough brake fluid. It's perfect. Now have a rag ready because this stuff will eat your paint. Okay, so now that we actually have brake fluid in the thing, I'm just going to do a quick gravity bleed on these front calipers, just in case we lost any, in case we got any air in the system when my brake pedal died. And I do not trust anything on this car right now that I haven't touched. So instead of using just a wrench, I'm going to use an impact socket and a 1/2-inch drive ratchet to break this bleeder valve loose. Alright, so I've got this broken loose and already we're getting brake fluid coming out. I suspect that's what was already there. So for a gravity bleed, it's not incredibly comprehensive, but we're basically just going to wait until brake fluid does start leaking out of here consistently. And it looks like we're at that point, so we're going to go ahead and close it up. Now, like I said, this is not a full bleed, but it is good enough, especially since we have to come back and redo a good portion of our brakes. Come to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. Technically, we should have done this in reverse order. And there you go, you got brake fluid coming out. Now we just gotta bandage up this caliper.
Alright guys, kind of an L working on the Honda, not gonna lie. We found a ton of problems here. That is gonna be a full day's of work, so we'll probably make another video on that. For now, we've got new brake fluid in it. We're gonna see if we can identify where it's leaking, and then we'll just fix all that at the same time. Good news, we got the truck running good, so we can start driving that one again. Got some really cool videos upcoming for that too. This is Slow Car HQ. This is the type of work that we do on here. We're gonna make all these cars sick and show you stuff that you guys can do at home. If you wanna see more, hit that subscribe. It really helps us keep doing what we love doing. That's it.